So there's this really famous chess quote. It's by this guy named Philidor. He was like 19th century chess master. He was the quote is pawns are the soul of chess, and there's like a logical reason chess wise why they say that. Pawns can't move backwards in chess, so the pawn structure is really important to how like a game is going to unfold, since you can't change it, and it's all the other pieces can move like backwards and forwards, but pawns only move forward. They capture diagonally. This is not a chess video. Please don't click away. And I think that as far as like relatability outside of chess, I really do think pawns are like the soul of like any team. It's a lot of times the people who are in the bottom rank tend to be the most important on any team. And there's a whole lot of there's a whole lot of sayings in English oh, you're getting played like a pawn, or a pawn is somebody really low rank, oh, I'm just a pawn. And it's I don't have any control over what's happening. I'm just the sacrificial lamb. There's a TV show I really like called The Wire, and there's a lot of chess references in The Wire. In season 1, they learn how to play. These are street drug dealers in Baltimore, and they teach the young kids how to play chess. And one of the kids, he's obsessed with being a pawn that becomes the king. And they explain to him, oh, the pawns don't become the king. The best they can do is become the queen, and it's all about the king. But that kid, the name of the character is Bodhi, and he talks about how he wants to rise up and go from being this street level drug dealer into being he wants to be the kingpin. And they were trying to explain to him oh, that's not how it works, in chess, that's not how it works. But also in life, it's not how it works. You don't get to become the king. There's obvious exceptions, but in general, you get the reference. And I in the season 4, that same character Bodhi, he talks to the police, the murder police, homicide division, and talks about how oh, we're just pawns in this kind of. I'm just trying to say oh yeah, this how it's referred to in English language, oh, we're just pawns in this game, and in The Wire, Bodhi makes the realization that being a pawn is bad. And in pretty much every in pretty much all the English language, people always refer to pawns negatively. And I think that the quote, pawns are the soul of chess, I think it's actually really beautiful. Just the way I think about how a lot of these team functions work. I think about my days playing football, about how it's really those offensive line, defensive line, those people usually aren't the most famous. Offensive line, in the National Football League, that's they're the trenches. Nobody really knows their offensive line's name, and they should, because if you have a good offensive line, it's pretty much as important as having a superstar running back. In fact, probably more important. Having a great quarterback doesn't mean anything if they're constantly getting tackled. I'm gonna end I'll end the football references now for non-Americans. But in any team-based setting, it's usually the people who get no credit. In the hospital, I think a lot about the people who draw blood. They're the phlebotomist, the nurses, of course. They don't really get that much love. But even lower, I say in quotations, but people who it's called EVS. They're like janitors, the cleaning people. Those people put in work. They work harder than probably anyone else. Lot of messy situations, and if there were no EVS, I mean, there would be an insane amount of diseases, hospital-borne diseases going around. Hospitals are very dirty places, and we would all die of a lot of diseases if it wasn't for EVS. I make sure to be really nice to the EVS people because it's important, super important. So I try to be nice to them. Any of these, a lot of these jobs are just you're in the trenches, and those people at the bottom, they never get any credit, Everybody's first to thank the doctors, Nobody ever thanks the EVS person. So I do think, it's a little bit of not poverty worship, but I think that's a lot more credit should go to the people at the bottom. And that's the people that make up the most of the majority of what the team is. There's only a handful of doctors, in the emergency department. There are literally hundreds of other people who work in order to make the hospital run. And most of them are just, very low wage workers at the bottom, and they make up a lot of the culture. They make up a lot of what the team is. So I think that, I really identify with that saying. Pawns are the soul of chess. But yeah, that's kind of just what I've been thinking a lot about lately. Yeah, I don't have any tattoos, but I was thinking about getting a pawn tattoo with that quote under it. Just because of how much I've been thinking about that lately, because everybody always I don't know, the people I'm around, it's always wants to be at the top, they want to go at the top and then implement structural change once you get to the top, once I'm president, I'm gonna change things. But I don't think that's really how it works, I think that once you get to the top, you're already going to be very changed, just that experience of getting to the top. You're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices of who you are, and it's going to have to sacrifice a lot of values. You're going to have to screw over a lot of people. You're going to have to do a lot of things. So I guess in a way I am poverty worshiping, just saying, people at the bottom are therefore better people just because they didn't have to make those sacrifices. So, you can take everything I say with a grain of salt. But I hope what I'm saying at least makes a little bit of sense. It is important, obviously, everybody we're all equals, but some people are more equal than others. That's another quote. That's an Orwell quote. But it's this whole idea, nobody's above each other, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying, it's not there's a lot more that comes from the bottom rung of the ladder or the bottom level of the pyramid. That has a lot more to do with an organization structure, the soldiers, that if you can have strong soldiers is way more important than having a strong leader. So I don't ever I don't know. I think that this whole idea, people who are gonna come in at the top and they're gonna change everything, I think that's kind of vain. I think it's it's a pride thing, and that's not realistic. Not really how these things work. It's a lot more important. How the vast majority of people, the everyday person, that makes a lot more of a change to a structure of an organization. We can have great leadership, and great leadership's important too, but it's about the people It's about the people at the bottom. You know, it does feel weird talking about like the hierarchical thinking, like, oh, people at the top, people at the bottom. But you guys, you know, you understand what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I think about that all the time, especially working in the emergency departments. You know, the job I'm doing, ER teching, it is not, it is not at the top at all. You know, it is definitely a soldier job. You know, do as you're told. That's what I say all the time. You know, whenever people say, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? I say, I'm just doing what I'm told. You know, so in a way, it's kind of nice. But still, you know, I do think that's a fun quote. Yeah. Anyway, chess is fun. And I do kind of love the pawns, you know. Definitely would be a cool tattoo. Anyway, once I have money, which I don't, but if I did, that's what I'd probably get. Alright, I'm probably going to end the commentary early. You guys get what I'm trying to say. Bye. See you tomorrow.